Some towns hang men with rope. Gallowsglen hangs them with paper. Elias Ward and Tom rode in at noon, and the canyon wind carried a single sound, a bell that didn't call people to church, only to pay. On the main post outside the courthouse, a notice flapped like a death warrant. "DEBTORS to the town, due at sunset." Tom's eyes froze on one name, Mrs. Kettler. Then he saw the mark beside it, a crescent-bit coin pinned through the paper like a nail through flesh. "Step away from that list," a voice said. Sheriff Mason Rourke stood on the courthouse steps, smiling like a man who'd already decided the ending. Two deputies drifted behind him, rifles loose in their hands. Rourke's gaze slid past Elias's face and settled on the bandage at his side, and his smile sharpened. "You're hurt," he said softly. "That makes you expensive." Tom shifted, ready to move. Elias didn't. Rourke stepped closer, close enough that nobody in the street could pretend not to see, and pressed a pistol into the small of Elias's back, like it was just another law of the canyon. "Register," Rourke whispered, "or I register the boy as mine." For a heartbeat, the whole town went quiet, because everyone in Gallowsglen knew what the coin meant. Elias turned his head just slightly, eyes calm and cold as iron. "You keep using quiet like it's peace," he said. Then, without raising his voice, he added the only warning Rourke would ever understand. "Touch him, and I'll dig you out of your own town." By sundown, one man would fall into the mine, and the coin would decide whether he screamed on the way down. Rourke's smile twitched, like a wire pulled too tight. "Legend talk," he murmured. "I like it. Makes the crowd behave." He nodded toward the sheriff's office. "Come inside. Canyon rules don't argue in the street." Elias stepped forward, slow and controlled, because a trap feels safer when you pretend you chose it. Tom followed half a pace behind, eyes scanning rooftops, hands loose, ready. Inside the office, the air smelled of ink, dust, and fresh rope. A coil sat on a chair like it belonged there. On the wall behind the desk, 5 crescent-bit coins were pinned in a neat line, each above a name written in clean script. Not trophies, receipts. Rourke sat without sitting, perched like he could spring. "You're passing through," he said. "Everyone pays to pass through. It keeps order, keeps the canyon from turning savage." Tom's voice was flat. "You mean it keeps people scared?" Rourke smiled. "Fear is a fence," he replied. "And fences keep wolves out." Elias's gaze drifted to a heavy lockbox behind the desk, iron, new, guarded by a key on a chain at Rourke's neck, the kind of box a man keeps when he's afraid of paper. Rourke noticed the look and leaned back. "You're interested?" he said. "Good, because this is simple." He nodded once. 2 deputies stepped behind Tom and clamped hands on his arms. Tom tensed, but a pistol pressed into his ribs. "Easy," one deputy hissed. "Sheriff's talking." Rourke kept his tone gentle. "The boy stays," he said. "You, Gravedigger, can leave. I'm generous." His smile sharpened. "You get to keep your legend. He gets to pay your debt." Tom's stomach dropped. Not because he was afraid to die, because he understood the shape of it. This wasn't about law. It was about severing the future from the past. Elias's face didn't change. "No," he said. Rourke's smile cooled. "Then you'll watch," he replied. He pulled out a crescent-bit coin and flipped it once in the air, caught it, then pressed it into an ink pad. He stamped the debtor's notice on his desk and wrote in bold, cruel strokes, "Tom Ward." Tom's breath caught. "That's not my—" Rourke shrugged. "It is now," he said. "Names are tools. So are boys." Elias's eyes went dead calm. "Take your hands off him," he said. Rourke chuckled. Or what? You'll bleed on my floor? Elias didn't answer. He moved. His hand snapped up and trapped the nearest deputy's gun wrist, twisting it just enough to break aim. Tom threw his weight backward, stomping hard on a deputy's foot and ripping free. The pistol fired into the ceiling, blasting plaster like snow. Rourke shouted, "Shoot!" Elias swung his shovel off his shoulder like a door being torn from its hinges and slammed the flat of the blade into a deputy's chest, driving him into the desk hard enough to rattle the lockbox. Tom seized the moment, yanked the pistol from the second deputy, and tossed it under the desk out of reach. Rourke lunged around the desk, reaching for his own gun. Tom grabbed the chair and drove it into Rourke's ribs, forcing him back a step. A shot cracked from outside and punched through the window, showering glass. Someone firing without caring who got hit. Elias grabbed Tom's collar. "Out!" he hissed. They burst into the street and the town erupted into motion. Doors slammed, people scattered, deputies poured from alleys like the canyon itself was coughing up men. Rourke stepped onto the porch, shouting like a preacher. "Close the gates! Block the pass! Nobody leaves!" Tom's heart hammered. "He's sealing us in!" Elias coughed once, sharp, angry, then spat dust. "Good!" he rasped. "Then he'll have to come close." They ran into the stone-cut lanes behind Main Street where rope lines hung above them, swaying in the wind like ghosts. The canyon walls narrowed, making every sound louder. Boots, breath, rifles clacking against belt buckles. A shot snapped overhead, ricochet whining off stone, forcing them lower. They reached a cramped market corner where crates were stacked high and lanterns hung low. An old man froze behind a barrel, eyes wide, clutching a sack of flour like it was his last meal. Tom saw him, and for half a heartbeat, Tom's body tried to protect a stranger before protecting itself. That half heartbeat almost killed them. A deputy burst around the corner and fired too fast, the bullet slamming into a crate, splintering wood. The old man screamed and dropped to his knees. Tom grabbed him by the shoulder and shoved him behind the barrel, then dragged him flat. Elias didn't praise Tom. He didn't scold him. He just moved into the open like a shield and swung the shovel into a hanging lantern. Glass shattered. Flame died. Darkness swallowed the lane. In the dark, fear makes men shoot at sound. Deputies fired, blind into the shadows. Bullets struck stone and sparked, loud and useless. Elias stepped through the darkness like he owned it, grabbed a rope line and yanked hard. A load of empty sacks swung down like a pendulum and slammed into two pursuers, knocking them off their feet and pinning them in dust. No blood, just breath knocked out and pride crushed. Tom's voice came tight in the dark. "This way!" He pulled Elias into a narrow cut between buildings where the walls were so close their shoulders scraped stone. At the end was a ladder to the rim, old, crooked, but climbable. Tom started up first, quick and quiet. Elias followed slower than Tom wanted, because the wound in his side wasn't a story anymore. It was a tax. Halfway up, Elias's hand slipped. Not from weakness, just pain, deciding it was time to speak. Tom saw it and his stomach dropped. "Elias!" "Climb," Elias rasped. "Don't look down." A deputy's head appeared below, rifle rising. Tom didn't fire. Tom kicked loose a chunk of stone from the rim. It dropped and struck the ladder rung with a crack, making the deputy flinch and duck. That flinch was enough for Elias to reach the top. They crawled onto the rim and ran along a narrow ledge path, the town spreading below them like a trap with teeth. Rourke's voice echoed up the stone like a bell. "Circle them! Herd them to the bridge! I want the town watching!" Tom understood then. Rourke wasn't chasing. He was staging. If he could force the legend to bow in public, the canyon would kneel forever. They hit a bend where the ledge tightened, and the drop grew deeper. A shadow moved on the far ridge, someone with a long rifle set up too calmly. Not a deputy, something trained. The shot came like a snapped branch, close enough to shave stone near Tom's ear. Tom hit the ground hard, breath knocked out. Elias dropped beside him, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. "That's not Rourke's men," Elias muttered. Another shot cracked, hitting the ledge ahead, forcing them back. Tom's voice shook. "Then who?" Elias didn't answer with a name. He answered with movement. He grabbed a fistful of dust and tossed it into the wind, watching how it drifted, reading the air like he read graves. "When I say," Elias whispered, "run left. Don't stop." Tom nodded, teeth clenched. Elias pushed up, stepped into the open, and lifted his shovel like a man surrendering. The sniper paused, because even killers hesitate when the target stops running. Elias's voice carried across the gap, calm as a tomb. "You're far," he called. "That how you like it?" The sniper's answer was another shot. Elias dropped instantly, flat, like he'd been pulled by the earth. The bullet flew over him and struck stone. In that same heartbeat, Tom sprang left, sprinting along the ledge exactly where Elias had pointed. Elias rolled, rose, and followed, using the second shot's echo as cover. They vanished into a narrow crack of rock just as deputies poured onto the rim behind them, shouting, firing, missing. The crack opened into a chute that sloped downward toward the heart of the canyon. The air smelled of old mine breath and stale rope. Far ahead, the wooden bridge loomed, an old catwalk stretched over a black drop, patched with fresh boards. Tom's chest heaved. "That's a death bridge." "Bridges don't kill," Elias said. "Men do." Behind them, deputies closed in, 6, maybe 8, rifles raised, confidence growing as the walls tightened. In front of them, Sheriff Rourke stepped into view at the far end of the bridge, pistol in hand, smile back in place. "End of the road," he called. "Hand the boy over and I'll let you walk." Tom's throat tightened. "Elias." Elias didn't look at him. He just said, "When I tell you, you go." They stepped onto the bridge. Boards creaked. The drop beneath them swallowed sound. Rourke's men stepped onto the first planks too, spreading out, trying not to look down. Rourke's voice stayed smooth. "Old man," he called, "you're tired, you're bleeding, be smart." Elias's eyes were flat. "Smart is why you're still talking," he said. He reached down, slowly, and pulled a peg from the side rail. Tom's eyes widened. "What are you—" "Go," Elias said. Tom sprinted across the bridge, boots slamming boards, not looking down, not thinking. Behind him, deputies surged, thinking the old man had finally cornered himself. Elias yanked the second peg, then the third. The bridge groaned. Rourke's smile vanished. "Stop!" he barked. Elias looked at him over his shoulder, breath ragged but eyes steady. "You like ropes," Elias said. "So do I." He pulled the final peg. The bridge snapped into chaos. Planks bucked. The far end dipped. Deputies screamed, grabbing rails, stumbling. One rifle went skittering into the void. Another man fell to his knees, sobbing so hard he couldn't breathe. Elias didn't smile. He stepped backward off the collapsing planks onto solid rock on Tom's side, because he'd measured every peg, every board, every weight. He hadn't built a trap. He'd read one. Stone thundered as part of the bridge tore loose and fell into darkness, taking the deputies' courage with it. Not all of them fell, but all of them broke. Rourke stood on the far side, face white, staring at the missing bridge like it had betrayed him. Elias's voice carried over the gap, low and final. "You wanted the boy," Elias said. "Now you can't reach him." Rourke's eyes burned. "I'll get him," he hissed. "I'll get both of you." Elias turned away and coughed hard, pain biting deep. Tom caught him before his knees could decide. "You're hurt bad," Tom said, voice tight. Elias nodded once, admitting what he wouldn't say. "Not bad enough," he muttered. But his eyes were glass for a second, and Tom saw the truth. The legend was paying for every step now. They moved along the canyon rim, searching for another way out, because Gallowsglen had more than one trap, and Rourke had more than one road. The sun dropped, turning the stone red, then purple. In the dim light, the canyon looked like a wound that never closed. They found a narrow goat path leading down to an old mine shaft opening, half hidden by brush, a way through the rock itself. The air that drifted out was cold and damp, like the earth had been holding its breath. Tom swallowed. "That's where they bury things." Elias's hand tightened on the shovel. "Then that's where we dig them out," he said. Inside, the tunnel was tighter than it looked. Their footsteps echoed like confession. Water dripped somewhere deep, slow and patient. Then Tom heard it, soft, broken sobbing. A woman's voice. "Please, please." Tom froze. "Mrs. Kettler." Elias's eyes narrowed. "And the box," he murmured. They crept forward until the tunnel opened into a chamber braced by old beams. At the center sat the lockbox from the sheriff's office. Dragged here, guarded by 3 men now, not 2, rifles steady, lantern light low. Mrs. Kettler sat on the ground beside it, wrists tied, face streaked with dust and tears. Her ledger was gone. Sheriff Rourke stood over her, no longer smiling. "You tell me where they went," he said softly. "Or you go down the shaft and the box goes with you." Mrs. Kettler shook. "I don't know." Rourke lifted a crescent-bit coin, letting it catch lantern light. "Everyone knows," he whispered. "Coins travel, rumors travel, legends travel." He glanced toward the tunnel mouth as if he could see through stone. "And I don't like visitors who don't pay." Tom's rifle rose. Elias's hand stopped it. "Not yet," Elias breathed. "Watch the ceiling." Tom frowned, then saw it. Beams bowed slightly, old and tired. One wrong shock could bring the whole room down. Elias picked up a loose length of rope from the ground. Mine rope, frayed. He looped it around the shovel handle in a quick, practiced motion, turning his tool into a hook. Then he flicked a small stone into the darkness to the right. One guard turned his lantern toward the sound. That was the opening. Elias moved like a man stepping into a grave he already measured. He hurled the shovel hook upward and snagged the lantern chain. He yanked. The lantern swung hard, then crashed into a beam. Glass shattered. Flame splashed, then died. Darkness slammed down. In the sudden black, Tom fired once, into the ceiling beam above the guards, not into flesh. Wood splintered. Dust rained. The guards flinched and staggered, coughing, losing aim. Elias surged in with the shovel, slamming the flat blade into one man's chest and driving him backward. The second guard tried to raise his rifle. Tom was there, wrenching it away, shoving the man into the wall. The third guard swung his rifle like a club. Elias stepped into it, took the hit on his shoulder, grunted, then drove the shovel handle into the man's stomach hard enough to fold him. No gore, just air stolen. Rourke spun, pistol up. He fired. The shot hit stone, sparks flashing, echoing like a bell. Elias closed distance through dust, breathing hard, blood warm under cloth. Rourke backed toward the shaft opening, eyes wide now. "You don't get to ruin my town," he snarled. "I keep it safe." Elias's voice was a rasp. "Safe for who?" Rourke's gaze cut to Tom because cowards always aim for the softer target. He lunged. Tom raised his rifle, but the chamber was tight. The shadows crowded. One bad shot and Mrs. Kettler dies. One bad shot and the ceiling comes down. Elias stepped between them. Rourke's pistol rose at point-blank range. Tom screamed, "Elias!" Elias snapped his hand up, trapped the barrel, and turned it away. The gun went off, and the blast tore into Elias's palm and forearm instead of Tom's chest. Elias grunted, pain flashing across his face for the first time, but he didn't let go. He shoved Rourke backward toward the shaft edge. Rourke scrambled, boots slipping on gravel. "No!" Elias leaned in, eyes like stone. "You mark people," he whispered. "So let the earth mark you." He kicked Rourke's knee out. Rourke fell into the darkness of the shaft, screaming until the echo swallowed him. Silence rushed in after. Tom stood frozen, shaking, staring at Elias's bleeding hand. You just... Elias's breath broke. "I didn't want to," he said. "He forced it!" Mrs. Kettler sobbed, staring at the shaft like she couldn't believe the canyon had finally taken the man who claimed to own it. He said the coin meant the account was closed," she whispered. "He said it was mercy." Elias looked at her, voice low. "It's not mercy," he said. "It's a muzzle." Footsteps echoed faintly from deeper tunnels. More men drawn by gunfire, by shouting, by the sound of a sheriff's plan collapsing. "We have to go," Tom said urgently. "More will come." Elias nodded once. "Take the box," he rasped. Tom hauled the lockbox up, muscles burning. It was heavier than he expected, full of paper and metal and names that could ruin lives. Mrs. Kettler stared at it like it was a coffin. "What is that?" she asked. Elias's voice was low. "A town's leash," he said, "and a bigger man's chain." They moved, fast now, through the shaft tunnels, not running wild, running smart. Elias led them through a side cut where the air was colder and the ceiling lower. At one point, the passage narrowed and Tom had to drag the lockbox sideways, scraping iron against stone, making sparks that died quickly in damp air. Behind them, voices rose. Deputies, men from town, angry and scared, not loyal to Rourke, loyal to fear. A shot cracked in the tunnel behind, ricocheting. Dust rained. Mrs. Kettler screamed. Elias stopped, turned, and planted his shovel blade into a crack in the support beam. Tom understood instantly. This wasn't about killing. It was about buying seconds. Elias levered the shovel hard. The old beam groaned. A small slide of rock fell, choking the passage with rubble. Not a collapse that buried men, just enough to slow them, force them to climb, to cough, to lose their rhythm. "Go!" Elias hissed. They burst out into the cooling dusk behind the town, emerging from brush like the earth had spit them out. The canyon wind hit them and felt like freedom and threat at the same time. Gallowsglen's bells began to ring. Alarm, anger, revenge. At the ridge, Tom looked back at the canyon town, lights trembling like nervous eyes. "We've freed them," he said, almost hoping. Elias shook his head. "We cut one rope," he replied. "The hand that tied it is still out there." Mrs. Kettler clutched her wrists, voice shaking. "He wasn't the hand," she whispered. "Rourke kept saying, 'I answer to the mark.' He said, if he failed, the canyon would swallow him. He said the coin was proof. Proof he still belonged." Tom looked down and realized his fingers were still holding something. He'd picked it off the lockbox latch without thinking. A crescent-bit coin, warm from his palm. Elias saw it, and his eyes narrowed. "Don't keep that," he warned. Tom swallowed. "Then how do we find them?" Elias stared at the horizon where the land opened into another stretch of hard country. "We don't find them," he said. "They find us." As if the West wanted to prove him right, something glinted on the trail ahead, a fresh stake in the dirt with cloth tied to it. Tom walked closer. Pinned to the cloth was a new crescent-bit coin, and beneath it a scrap of paper with 2 words written in clean ink, "Bring him." Tom's voice went thin. "They know about you." Elias's jaw tightened. "They've always known," he said. Mrs. Kettler looked from the coin to the lockbox. "What do we do?" she whispered. Elias lifted his shovel with his good hand, pain etched into the lines of his face but not into his voice. "You take the box to someone who still believes in daylight," he told her. "You don't hide it, you show it." He looked at Tom. "And you stay behind me." Tom's eyes flashed. "I'm not a boy on a list anymore," he said. Elias held his gaze for a long beat. Then he nodded once, barely. "Then act like it," he said, "because they're not testing me." His eyes slid to the coin. "They're testing what you become when I start to fall." Tom's throat tightened. "Are you—" Elias cut him off with a look that wasn't cruel, just true. "Walk," he said. They started down the trail, the lockbox heavy between them, the coin's message burning in Tom's mind like a brand. Behind them, Gallowsglen's bells kept ringing, like the canyon was trying to call them back into its mouth. And now here's the question for you. Because Gallowsglen was only one canyon, and the trail just wrote your names in ink. If someone was setting traps town by town, forcing an old legend to bleed and a young man to choose what he becomes, would you keep following the coin, knowing one day it won't be a warning, it'll be a funeral?